A man's optimal game is going to be around 32 years old, give or take a year or two. Now, let me explain. Now, I previously said that a man's highest SMV is going to be around 27, give or take a year or two. And let's just recap why that is. That his maximum SMV is 26, 27, 28. So as women have started to date men and essentially get married to men closer to their age, because the resource discrepancy is not as big of a deal now, because women have more employment opportunities, and they don't need us. They're not going to starve, guys. Sorry about all the shaking. I'm crossing a bridge here, and sorry about the tilt, but we're just going to keep it going. So yeah, basically 26, 27, 28, they're getting married to guys closer to their age. What a woman really wants is she wants this athletic, good-looking guy who's 2.5 years older than her, was the star, on the basketball team, football team, baseball team, whatever. He has upward projectability. He lives 5 miles from her, so on and so forth. That's really what she wants, and it has rich parents. He has rich parents. He has a lot of upward projectability. He might make it to the MLB. He might make it to the NBA. Like those types of things. That's really what she wants. Now, is it... Obviously, those are few and far between, because it's like, okay, that guy, she might not actually really be into his look. Let's say if he does have that potential to make it to MLB, NFL, NBA, whatever, NHL, all this kind of stuff. She might really not be into his archetype, not be into kind of his build, kind of his look. That might not be pheromonally a good match, all that kind of stuff. But they want these guys who are a couple years older than them, or at least that's what they've sort of conditioned themselves to believe, sort of thing. But it's more often that actually it's going to work better if the guy is somewhere between 5 and 9 years older, potentially, and depending. I mean, obviously, you can be a young version of whatever age we're talking about, obviously by staying fit. So the thing is, you need to kind of realize that you have to be the best version of yourself. You got to stay the fittest you can. You have to stay the most athletic you can. Just try to looks max, essentially in every category, hopefully. Obviously, it can be tough, but at the end of the day, that is, the best that you can do kind of on the looks front. Now, why does your game suddenly kind of like correlate with around 32, and that is kind of going to be sort of the peak of your game? Oftentimes, a person, if they stayed in shape, they've really kind of protected their skin, all that kind of stuff, the age of 31, 32, 33, it's possible that their looks are still intact, that they could still essentially look like maybe they're 25, 26, but they have more resources, so they have a little bit more resources. They've actually interacted with more women, so their game has elevated. If they were consistently, going out talking to women and dated different women, they sort of learn from past mistakes, past relationships, learn from other men, compared notes. And this seems to be true. All the places that I've went and all the guys that I've talked to, it does really seem like that they're having the most success, usually around 31, 32, 33. That being said, if you're 22, 23, you don't want to waste time and be like, well, I'll just go full monk status and wait until I'm 32. No, you don't want to do that, because you don't want to get behind the 8 ball. Who are the guys that are younger that had advanced game? It was usually guys with an older brother who were able to learn from that situation, or sort of be kind of grandfathered into social circles with older people, and they kind of learn and their game advanced kind of from that situation. And then while a lot of us were still trying to figure things out and saying stupid stuff when we were 20, 21, 22, cock blocking ourselves, being ridiculous, shooting ourselves in the foot, then it's kind of like some of those guys got past that at an earlier age. The earlier you can get past all these issues, the better off you're going to be. Obviously, the quicker you're going to have success. that being said, even if you're having success when you're 22, 23, 24, whatever, you're still likely to probably have more success when you're 31, 32, 33, but you should not just think, oh, it's going to get better, I'm going to wait. Obviously, situationally, things can change with the world. The dynamic can change. The game keeps changing, guys. And with that being said, with like C-19, I mean, that was the biggest cock block since the Ice Age, and it still continues to be honest with you, because there's so much controversy, with the mandates, with various different lockdowns, different jabs, all this kind of stuff. Such a controversy that's then another hurdle to get past. It ends up being another conversation that would not happen 3 years ago. So that being said, don't wait around. Don't waste your time. Never go full monk status. I have a friend that he was saying, I'm going to go full monk status. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, never go full monk status. And this guy's 27. I'm like, never go full monk status this close to college spring break. I'm like, you need to get down to South Padre Island. He's over in Texas. So, yeah, you got to always keep making moves. If you see something you like, you need to go right in and approach, whether that be at the gym, the grocery store, anything. And really when it boils down to it, a lot of guys don't realize the amount of exposures that you have to make to have any level of success, because even in the situations, and I'm going to tell you guys a little story time here. So I was flying down to Fort Lauderdale to get a car, and kind of crazy situation. Like, basically I didn't have a seat number, and I asked the stewardess, because basically there was no seats. It's like, wait, is it seat yourself kind of like Southwest? And it wasn't, because I was on Spirit. And so she placed me in the emergency exit row, and then another guy in the same situation, she placed him there. Very similar type guy. We start talking about cars, talking about all this. He had these two friends down in Miami that, they're chicks, and he was going to stay with them. And then the next day he was going to be going to Burning Man. I guess they do regional Burning Man. So he was going to be out on this island down in Miami for Burning Man. And crazy situation. He's like, well, I mean, you're welcome to go down there with us. And I was like, dude, I would be totally up for it, but maybe I should just, stay up in Fort Lauderdale, just because we might be doing, we're going to do this like early, like 8, 9 o'clock or whatever. But at the time we got talking more and stuff like that. And then we're walking out of the airport. There's like a bar there. I'm like, well, I mean, dude, do you want to get a drink before you head off? And, he was like, yeah, sure. So we started drinking. We started talking about more stuff about Miami, all this other stuff. His ex-girlfriend is going on about her. He's talking about how he knows these girls, which it was actually through his ex-girlfriend, and all this. So anyway, he was just like, yeah, they're hitting me up, and I'm like telling him I'm with this dude who's, buying a car tomorrow. And he's like, dude, you should roll down with this, man. Like, you should totally go down there. I'm like, okay, dude, you convinced me. So, I mean, I couldn't resist. So, like, go down there. It's, luxury, high-rise, basically apartment, downtown Miami. We're partying, we're having fun, like, and these girls are, like, looking at me, and one of the things they said, they're like, when Jimmy said that he was talking to some guy that was going to buy a car, I mean, we didn't know, like, who he was really going to bring. And then, like, kind of as time went on, it's almost like both of these girls were, like, to some level interested in me. And my gimbal is messing up again, guys. Well, I'm going to continue this story. So, basically by that point, everything, we're partying. I mean, we partied way too hard, for me to be buying a car the next day, which was ridiculous. But that's just what happened. And then one of the chicks actually wanted to go see the car. And actually, she knew a lot about cars. She knew about this car. She knew this is, so I don't know if you guys can see the logo and stuff on there. This is a Bentley. It's a Bentley Continental GT Speed. She knew about this car. So I was pretty impressed with that. She used to work in a body shop. They used to do a ton of modifications and stuff like that. She knew a lot about titles and insurance and stuff. It was actually very helpful for me to have her along for this whole thing. And it's another set of eyes. There's always going to be little things wrong with the car that you're not going to notice. There's no way to notice everything. So she was able to look stuff, and then there was certain stuff with the title that I kind of question marks, and she confirmed what I was thinking, and she sort of had like more insight. So So that was good and stuff like that. Now, that all being said, there really wasn't a situation you can say like, okay, well, did you hook up with those girls? No. Like that did not happen. But that being said, it was like more of a situational thing, because one girl had other friends coming in, and this girl kind of like, I could tell she didn't really want to come out and say it, but she'd already been talking to a dude, and it seemed like they'd already hung out, and they had decided to basically get a hotel room on the beach in Miami kind of a couple days after I met her or whatever. And so, you know, I was kind of weighing out the situation. They like, what's going on? You want to hang out on the beach, blah, blah, blah. She was like, well, we can hang out, but, you know, you can't stay with us. I have a friend. I'm like, okay, like a friend, like guy or girl, you know, like, so again, it was situationally, she was already talking to some other dude down there, but yet she didn't want to come out and say what the situation was, because I could tell she was interested in me. But then it was like her friend was interested in me. So, but then her friend had 2 other friends coming in from out of town, all this other stuff. So that being said, though, I've got another contact in Miami. That's the thing. You build your network. And you don't need to be so thirsty that like, oh, it didn't happen, and so you're defeated or something like that. No, it's just like you move on, you build your network, and all that kind of stuff. So it's high exposure rate. But that being said, that's kind of how social I am, that I ended up in the emergency row exit with some other random dude. We get talking, we end up practically partying all night with these 2 girls that are his friend or whatever, that was his ex-girlfriend's friends. So pretty crazy situation. You know, can't say that's the first time that something insane like that's happened. But you know, you just basically have to be social, always sort of build your network, and like just having like tons of exposures. Now, that being said, what is sort of like the rate that you can go at? Like how much success could somebody really have? And for all accord, and sharing all my notes and kind of talking to a lot of guys that have achieved kind of this sort of elite game, or they are using the apps, or using cold approach, they have a large network, all this stuff. If your whole sole goal was to like get with as many chicks as possible, you could probably hook up with 1 chick a week in a large market with elite game, with elite exposures, all that stuff like that. Now, that being said, that is extreme. You would be spending nearly your entire time going out all the time, you know, getting like spending enormous amounts of time talking on the apps, all that kind of stuff like that. But pretty much 1 a week. I mean, that's over 50 chicks a year. That's a lot. I mean, that's definitely a lot. That's a lot of work. And most of the guys that maybe say that they've done that, you start to see holes in their story when you start hanging out with them, you know, where they're not really having the level of success that they purported to have, you know, and then you kind of see a little bit of hole in their story. But that being said, the longer sometimes you're in a market too, now obviously if it's a big market like Miami, Dallas, you're not going to burn those markets out. If you're in a little bit smaller market, you become this known entity. I've even seen that in places like Columbus, Ohio. I mean, Columbus is kind of a semi-big market, but you can kind of burn yourself out going to the same 5-6 places, and it's like, oh, that's so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. You're not a mystique anymore. People know about you. Oh, who is that guy? Oh, no, I know him. He's this, or he's that, or he isn't this, or he isn't that. Now, that being said, again, the reason why I say 31, 32, 33, your looks have not disintegrated. If you stayed in shape, you really try to take care of yourself, your interactions with women have improved, your social network has improved, and you've had enough time for that to occur and to sort of like learn from past mistakes and that. But do not wait. Your actual peak sexual marketplace value, in my opinion, is 27, 28, 29. And that partially becomes because women are getting, you know, with, you know, younger guys, there's not that big of a differential. And then you have the power of leverage. That's something I didn't mention earlier in the video. You have the power of leverage I own this car all cash, but a lot of guys, I own all my vehicles all cash, but a lot of guys are making payments, or they're able to, lease, badass vehicles, lease luxury apartments, all this kind of stuff, and it's kind of like some of this stuff gets handed away like Halloween candy, and you can kind of like control a lot of like high-end resources and not really have any equity in anything. That's why I say there's not an advantage of being 35 over being 27 financially, as long as you kind of got your ducks in a row to some extent. That being said, guys, the gimbal is fighting me. And leave some comments below. What do you guys think about that? What do you think of my assessment? What do you think about my story too? That's a pretty sick story. It was definitely fun. But that being said, subscribe to this YouTube channel and ring that bell icon so you can get notified on this YouTube channel. And we will see you guys later.